Hello, everyone. Happy Thursday. How is everyone doing? I'm a bit under the weather this morning, so I'll do my best to get through this. Hope everyone is healthy and well and having a wonderful day so far. Good morning, John. Good morning, Jacob. Good morning, Mark. Good morning, Patrick. Good morning, Sterling. Sterling's going to put in a lot of the earnings. Good morning, Eric, and we'll go through those in a second. Good morning, McRangers. Good morning, Martinez. What else? There we go. Good morning, Daniel. Yeah, I didn't get a day off yesterday. It's just there's no way I could have pulled off a live stream yesterday. It would have been like at 5:30 my time. And I figured everybody could do without me for a day. So hope everyone had a good day yesterday. We got lots of stuff out besides earnings also. Let's just go through the numbers real quick. We're waiting for more people to come on in. I guess say good morning to Ted first. Sterling's getting all the earnings in the chat. We'll go through some of those in a bit. GDP numbers. These are the Q4 numbers. Consensus was GDP growth rate. Consensus 2.6 coming in at 2.3. GDP price index coming in at 2.2. Prior was 1.9. Coming in a little better than consensus. By the way, I'll jump to the initial jobless claims coming in at 207. Very good print there. And continuing jobless claims drop. Both of those are lower than prior and lower than consensus. Core PCE prices, these are the quarter over quarter, coming in at 2.5. And where the PCE prices, not the core, are coming in 2.3 versus 1.5. So, but consumer spending, big pop in consumer spending last quarter of 3.7 prior and 4.2. What else do we have today? Pending home sales and some 4 and 8 week bill auctions. Remember, big numbers coming up yesterday. And by the way, Fed, in case you for some reason missed it, Fed paused yesterday. I thought Powell was all over the place in his press conference, and the questions were just inane. But we're going to see how the core PCE prices and the headline PCE prices come in tomorrow morning. So do not sleep through Friday morning's data. So far today, Microsoft, which was a beat, but missing on their cloud revenue. So that's getting beat up a little for that, down 4.8%. Meta, very strong earnings with Meta, up close to 2.6. Google up. Tesla was a miss, and it's up almost 5%. I mean, they said they're going to start robo-taxis in Austin. They have not even done any the level 4 testing, and that's what's technically required, but who knows with Tesla. Who knows? And Broadcom up 5% there. We'll get through some earnings in a second. I'll just recap those. We'll go through UPS. How much is UPS down? There it is. UPS is down 15%. UPS is guided next year lower than this year. So from UPS perspective, things definitely slowing down, in FedEx in conjunction with them off almost 3.5%. What else do we have? Groups. Let's just do a quick refresh here. Everything but technology is up. And utilities are up with rates. The 10-year yield's pulling back. And remember, utilities are very rate sensitive. So that's why they're rallying. Also, gold launching. This is going to get this is going to be an interesting year. We have 80% chance of a pause in March. Remember, there is no February meeting, so we have to wait roughly 48 days and 4 hours for the next Fed meeting. Fear and greed still in neutral mode. Schiller PE so far with the markets holding up, and where earnings are coming in at 38. So still nosebleed territory there. Again, thank you for putting in all the earnings. And we'll take a look at some of these in a second. So we covered Microsoft was a beat, but missed on cloud. So being beat up there. Western Digital was a misbeat. Whirlpool beat, miss. Tesla, we already covered that. Miss. Contraction in their margins too. I mean, 5% up, but that's Tesla. There you go with the beat. Meta's very strong earnings. What else do I want to cover? MasterCard was this morning, was a beat. Caterpillar was a beat, missing on revenue for Caterpillar. What else? Southwest Airlines was a beat missing, another one missing on revenue. Dow was a miss. Altera was a beat. Remember, that's always a nice thing to watch for with a dividend play. What else do we have? Some of these we just don't need to go through. They're not important. I just don't want to keep the live stream going too long. I gotta say hi to Anissa though. In case you're into painting, Sherwin-Williams was a beat miss. And what else? Thank you for putting in all the important earnings. That's a lot of work, Sterling. Thank you. Hello, Charles. Elon was really selling the sizzle in that press conference yesterday. Well, we can call it selling the sizzle. I have another word for it, but I don't want to get kicked up. I don't want to get muted again and kicked off of X. So also remember, after the close today, Apple is against a 50% harmonic with a potential mini double top. So keep an eye on that going into earnings. You got Intel and Visa. Now, I expect Visa to print pretty strong based off of MasterCard. So we got three very key things this afternoon, and then tomorrow we kick it off with you start kicking off the oil and energy sector. Oh boy. Oh boy. So then there's Apple right there. We'll just start with Apple. All right, we're against the 50% harmonic after a run up. Like everybody poured into Apple so far this week, up close to 7.5% off the 50. But we're going to see, because I want to see what their earnings are. Very overbought with a potential little double top. So that's going to be very interesting right there. But the S&P, on the bigger picture, there's two key areas I'm watching. Two key areas. We do have a little triangle formation, but the very key areas I'm watching is about 6,110. Can't do anything substantially to the bullish side unless we can break and sustain above that, and then there's still a gap fill back to 6133. And to the downside, it can't get overly bearish unless we start breaking below 6040. 6040, but there's some key support at 6020, and then it goes into no man's land. And I'd be watching for a retest to Monday's lows. So that's right now. If you look at this, again, here are those key levels, support and resistance. So those are the levels I'm looking at here right now. Now we are getting to daily cycle bottoms, but we're going to have to really see with the PCE numbers that come out tomorrow morning. From a weekly perspective, we're still climbing. So we're going to be at a bottom on daily, still climbing on the weekly. So could we still see another push higher? I'd have to say potentially yes. So I'd be watching more so for the breakout than the breakdown, but it's going to really be dependent on those PCE numbers tomorrow. On NASDAQ, you can see here we're right against a very key level. This 21,695, 21,700 is very key. We start breaking above there. My two targets are 21,775 area with a gap down open. Technically, the gap down open was to 21,771, and then to the full gap fill to 21,907. So those are the targets on the breakout that I'm using to the upside. To the downside, there's a minor support level at 21,550, but your major support doesn't come in until 21,338, so can't get overly bearish unless we break below 21,388 area. And when I give a number, because I've been asked this a couple times, does that mean 21,388.50? That's the exact number. I'm watching in that area. Remember, support and resistance is an area. I have to say some number. But it does not mean if it goes to 21,387, does not mean that support level's really broken. It has to prove that it's broken, either with massive momentum or by breaking that level and coming up and retesting it. And again, it's an area. It's not a brick wall. Always remember that with any support and resistance. The Dow. By the way, let's jump back to the NASDAQ real quick. The daily cycle's getting to the top, or the 4-hour getting to the top. Daily cycle's on the bottom turning up. And the weekly still headed higher. So could we see more upside? That's why I'm also watching for potentially the upside breakout. And you see the gap down target and then the full close. Those are the key things. The Dow on here, just a sideways, not a double top formation. The Dow, if it starts breaking below 44,740 area, I'll start watching for a minor pullback level. A minor pullback. It has not hit that 87.5. So we got daily cycles going down on the Dow, but weekly still going up. So remember, the key support would be closer to the 8 EMA and around 44,600. The Russell still caught between major support and major resistance. Major support 2280, major resistance 2330. Until it gets out of there, it's only short-term trading. If it breaks out, the key area it's got to get above is 2330 from my perspective. The VIX dropping back down. So if this continues lower, especially getting below and sustaining below this 15 or 16 level, which is below right now, it's at 1591. Then I'll start really focusing on the potential breakout to the upside in those S&P and NASDAQ. You're trying to help me with my PC phraseology. I really appreciate that. Keeping me out of the Tesla doghouse. It's selling the sizzle, not like, did I say lying? Selling the sizzle. Oh, I love that. Selling the sizzle. Thanks to Sterling. Thank you, Sterling. We're going to, let's see how the PCE numbers, because maybe they'll be selling the sizzle tomorrow within the markets. All right. The DAX just keeps continuing higher. The potential little double that never triggered. So again, DAX still in trailing mode. ECB cut, by the way, 25 basis points. Closing on the next minor target, 21,872. Again, area. When I use these targets, I look to other short-term things to fine-tune them. So, like, I'll go up around 21,872, but it doesn't mean I put an exact order at that level. Okay? And then 22,099. So that's 22,100 is the next major level. Now, the DAX, keep in mind, is getting very overextended and weekly cycles getting to the top. So I will be watching for a topping formation coming in soon, but there is not one yet. Notes up against the 50 EMA on the little mini triggered head and inverse head and shoulders, but no key levels reached yet. Now this is going into the PCE numbers. We do have a little mini potential double top. So we're going to have to keep an eye on that. This is a level that, based off the PCE numbers tomorrow, I would be keeping erring on a much tighter stop on this. The yield, we do have a potential little mini double bottom against, wrong one, a little mini potential double bottom against the 50 EMA after a triggered horizontal neckline head and shoulders, but no key levels hit yet. Same thing on the inverse side, I'd be keeping a much tighter stop going into the PCE numbers, especially with daily cycles getting the bottom and weekly heading lower. But yields are still pulling back after Powell's presser yesterday. The dollar index, little pullback now. We had the little percent B buy with not much follow through. But as I said, the key level, it would have to get a stop below the low from Monday to really invalidate it for me. Crude. I was going into tomorrow watching for to see if we get any buy setups tomorrow. Nothing much today that I'm looking at, but I am watching to see if it holds in this area. This is a very key short-term area we're trading against, again, against the 50 EMA and into the weekly rotation zone and against prior resistance becoming support. If it doesn't hold here, I could see us getting all the way back at some point. I don't know why that moved. at some point to the, why did my levels move? Oh, take that one off. I don't know, sometimes they just move on their own. Then I could see it returning to 200 if we start losing the weekly rotation zone. That's why I'm watching for a setup here, but there is not one yet. Natty Gas hitting the first target on the double top. Now trying to roll over again. So we still have potentially more downside in Natty Gas. Gold up huge, taking out that 87.5. Watching to remember, talked about this long term. In January, was watching for the long-term breakout move for another major push higher, and we passed that 62.5 a few days ago, which confirmed it for me, and now we've tacked off the 87.5. So watching for the breakout in the next major cluster is this 22,900 area. We have not technically broken out yet, but that's what I'm looking for there. Don't need to cover those. Yen still pulling back. Now, the yen does have a potential minor double bottom. That's the only thing, and we have a nice descending trend line. So the only thing that would make me short-term bullish on the yen is if that were to trigger. And it is a little sloppy, but because of the way it stair-stepped down, but that's the only thing that would put me in to reverse the pullback move so far. And we are against the bottom of the weekly rotation zone. But that's the only setup there is, other than a couple front run patterns. Euro, again, after triggering the little double or head and shoulders, sloppy head and shoulders, has not made it to any targets. Let's take a look at the spiders. By the way, on a weekly basis, yes, the double is still in play, the double top, but nowhere near triggering. On any breakout play on here, we start getting above about 604.50. Then I'm watching for the gap fill back to 607.97. Very, very key support back for me is back at 598. The Qs, again, we start getting above, we start getting above 520, this high of 523, which we're looking to open above now. So if we can sustain above 523, next minor target is 524.22. And then I'll be watching for the potential gap fill all the way back to 529.63. So the good old Bitcoin, not much to talk about, still in this major consolidation area. And yes, the weekly double top is still in potential play, but has not been confirmed or triggered and may never be. So the only breakdown play is back below 89,000. What else? We have Tesla. By the way, Tesla invalidated the double bottom yesterday because it traded below the 75 harmonic and also closed below 62.5. But first, it traded below the 75. Even though it's going to gap up today, I'm now going to be watching for another rollover play in this after the sizzle has worn off. And there's your nice earnings on there. A pretty big revenue miss of close to 5.7%. But selling the sizzle. Thanks, Sterling. NVIDIA still has not been able to get above the breakdown resistance zone. You can see here, you can lower that just a bit now to about 129.50, 130 area. Broadcom, though, trying to, what's the news out on them today? I don't even know. Oh, for Meta. Okay. Key resistance, their breakdown zone is right around 219, 220. We're gapping up to 218, so I'm going to be watching that into the cross of the negative rotation zone. So I'm going to watch if that wears off starting next week. Good morning, Heinrich. Faux shizzle, huh? Sizzle faux, I can't say that. Sizzle faux shizzle. Good morning, Richard. What's the best level to buy gold for a swing trade? Well, if you pay it, I don't give out specific trades. I give out potential things I'm watching for. The key level, if you were watching for a swing trade, to me, was back where when it closed above in the short term, it closed back above the 62 and a half. Then, you don't necessarily buy it then, but watching any pullbacks in the rotation zone. With the first stop raise being the 87 and a half, at least. The next stop raise for me would be the prior highs, 28.50. Another potential stop raise or potential for a swing, 28.80 for a potential stop raise again, or a potential taking off profits. But definitely from a swing perspective, I'd be looking again. I cannot give you a trade recommendation. Where I'd be looking to take something off on a breakout play with gold breaking out would be 2,900 area and raising a stop again, because this has a longer term perspective in it. Now, are we in potential double top territory? Yeah. So guess what? From my long-term perspective, the only thing that changes it for me that says, okay, we've now peaked pretty substantially would be a weekly close back below 25.90. Other than that, the trend is up. The trend is up. Now, you can find a lot of different setups, but that's based off the stuff I watch for. I've laid it out how important that 62 and a half and the close above it is. What else do we have? I already covered the Apple little mini 4-hour potential double top going into earnings. May never trigger, but that's what I'm keeping an eye on there with Apple today. Meta breaking out. Well, it's breaking out to new. There we go. The next target there, sorry, I didn't see the pre-market. The next harmonic was 694.38, so 695 area. Roughly, it's going to open just above that right now. So that is pretty key for Meta. Other than that, with this little minor pausing bar, from the most recent, because it did not touch that prior day's high. If you're looking for the next key level above there, look at that cluster. Look at that. Then we go to 708, 25 area. So we have the cluster right at the 695, because it was 694.38 to 695.50. And then we'd have 708.23. And you see why this is a pausing bar? Because you don't necessarily need a red bar. You need a bar where the prior high is not taken out. Now, it's stronger if this was a downward close bar, but it's fine because it's a short-term swing. That gave us a pausing bar, so we can use that for a short-term harmonic. So if you're trading the good old Meta and playing for substantially higher prices, see, this would be a cluster I would not ignore. I would not ignore raising at least a stop at this 695 level. What's the trigger for what, Richard? Can you peek at Vail if you have the time? Let's take a look at this longer term. So it finally checked off that 87.5 rule. Finally checked off there against a very substantial support zone. Is there a long-term bottoming pattern yet? No, there is not. If you are looking for a short term, this is one that have to show its strength to me because it's still against the weekly rotation zone. I mean, for me, it would have to start sustaining above this 933 level and show it can hold that as support against the weekly rotation zone before I'd be interested in it at all. And this doesn't even qualify for inverse head and shoulders in my book. So it'd have to really continue to prove its strength because this is not a long-term buy pattern yet. It's still got negative downwards pressure. This is one I'd be watching for something. Now, if it can sustain something above 933 and get that weekly rotation zone out of the way, then I reconsider. But until then, I get the trend is still down. But this is one, again, if we get maybe a long-term double bottom, if this rolls over again, then it could be a potential play if that were to trigger. Sometimes it's just best to sit on your hands and leave the capital free and wait for the setup and not worrying about missing a trade. Can we have a future cup and handle? Yes, you do have a huge potential gold cup and handle. We could be getting there. This was too big a dip, but if we get another little, if we get something here, and then, I mean, we have a little handle here, but I'd be watching for maybe a bigger handle up here. Yeah, it's a rounded bottom. You could easily get a cup and handle on here. I just don't see it on the weekly yet. But regardless, it would just give me projections higher. Okay, and on the next major the next key level beyond that 2,900 is 2,962. And then if we go all the way back, so we come back to these very key lows in October 22, your next you're to 2,968 and then roughly 3,100. So I don't even need to do other cup and handle projections on there because for the longer term, I'd be targeting 3,100 potentially. Also, AI has a potential daily, weekly double bottom with daily and weekly cycles at bottom. Let's take a look at that. Then yeah, there's your weekly double bottom. Yep, with cycles at the bottom. So that could be, but it's nowhere near triggering just yet. But that could be an interesting setup if it does trigger. And you can see it there on the daily. So that's a very nice setup. Thank you, Sterling. You're welcome, Anissa. You missed the boat, plane, and train with gold. So we've talked about gold for so long. Again, Richard, you got to give me double bottom to top. We've talked about both of them, and depending on, you got to put the symbol in you're talking about because there's a delay in the chat. So I might have moved on from a chart. Like AI has a potential double bottom. Gold has a massive weekly potential double top that may never trigger, may become invalidated before it ever triggers. So let's just see at this level because this is very interesting against a prior major support level. So if this were to trigger, it'd be a very interesting potential trade in AI, C3 AI. All right, looking back at the open. Again, I mean, going into this, as long as the 60-75 level holds, I'll be erring on the side, in the short term, I'll be erring on the side of watching for potential more upward price action. And you can see where this key breakout area, and this is where I'm talking about an area. You see, prior it topped at 6104, then it topped around 6110, with right around there 6107 being very, very key. This last little push couldn't get there. So first, let's just hypothetically say there was a buy setup, which there is not yet from my perspective, from the things I watch for. I'd at least be looking on any buy setup to raise a stop at 6100, 6101, because that's where it topped out before, and then I'd be looking to see how it reacts closer to 6107. If it can sustain a move above 6107, and this might not happen today because remember the PCE numbers are tomorrow, And we've already had a nice little bounce coming off, you know, yesterday's end of market. So this market's got to prove itself from my perspective going into the PCE numbers tomorrow. But those PCE numbers I'll be watching for either that breakout or breakdown. Now, the tick, very strong tick opening. Look at that tick opening. That's a pretty strong tick opening there. So, as I've discussed before, I'm watching for the tick pullback and the S&P to hold key support. Then on the next tick bounce, I'll be watching to see in the short term on the next tick bounce if on any move it can get above the 60.94 once the tick starts bouncing. Or if we pull back to key support, this tick starts bouncing, it could be interesting for a little mini setup against a key long. So those are the two key things I'll be watching in the short term. Well, some things, if gold's your kryptonite, don't worry about it. Don't worry about it. And gold for me is not the best short-term trading instrument. Gold to me is a longer-term trading instrument. There's better short-term trading instruments. Okay. Wow. I shall talk to everyone later. Hope everyone has a wonderful trading day. PCE numbers tomorrow to wrap up the week. And with that, have a wonderful day. Bye for now.